Good morning, everybody. This is going to be a really short video because I'm just going to kind of introduce you to this new lab simulation you're going to be playing with today and showing you how it works and then answering any questions you might have, and then I'm going to let you have some time to play around with it. In your stream, the assignment is this PhET lab gravitational force and orbits right here. And so there's a Google Doc, which I've already got a copy opened in this other tab here that I'm going to be showing you. But this right here is the link to the sim. You open up that page and hit play. You've got two different options right here. You've got model and you've got to scale. I'm going to start by taking a look at model. And let me see if I can actually make myself a little bit smaller here, just so I'm not in the way. Okay, so you notice a number of things right off the bat. You've got some options up here in the top right. These are different models. The first one is just the sun and the earth, which you can just hit play and it starts things in motion. You also have the option of turning on different things, like you can turn on a grid where you can actually sort of track the motion that these things are on. You can pause it. You can add these gravity force, which shows gravity force as force vectors, which if you're in physics, you remember us talking about force vectors. Remember, the point shows the direction that they're going, and the length of the line shows how great that force is. You also have an option to turn on force vectors showing the velocity of objects. You can use this up here to zoom in and out, get closer to or farther from the action. You also can click this button right here, which is really cool because it traces a path for you. So you can kind of watch the path you can see on the grid lines, you know, whether it's circular, whether it's elliptical, or what have you. You also have the option here of either hitting this to slow it down or hitting this right here to put it in fast forward. Some of the other options you have to play with up here, this is just like the earth and the sun. You can, let me hit reset on that. If I'm not mistaken, you can also click and drag the sun and the earth to different positions before you start up the sim, and that will let you kind of test and see what would happen if the earth was a little bit further away or if the earth was a little bit closer. You also have sliders here which let you play with the masses. So right now they're default set on the mass of our sun and the mass of our earth, but you can increase or decrease the masses of any of those either before you start or while it's in motion, and you can see what effect that has on the bodies in motion. You've also got this right here, and this, if you really want to be evil, you can click this little checkbox and you can turn gravity off and watch and see what happens when that goes. But a few other options you have here. You can also pull up the earth, the sun, and the moon, and this one's really slick because if you leave path turned on, you can kind of see how the moon sort of spirals around the earth as the earth sort of orbits around the sun. And this will also show you what happens to the moon if you mess with the earth's mass or if you mess with the sun's mass. You can go with simply the earth and the moon and take a look at that. And one thing that I think is really kind of cool is that if you look here, our earth doesn't stay stable. The moon, as it's rotating, actually is causing movement in our earth's position. Okay, so you can see how gravity works both ways there. That's really cool. And then you can also, I'll pause that, you can also play with the earth and a satellite, and you can take that satellite, oh, I just killed it. You drag it into the earth and, you know, wipe out North America, bam! Or you can try try taking that satellite up to a higher orbit and see how that affects things. You can mess with the masses of the satellite. That right there is set to be the mass of the International Space Station, which is technically a satellite. It's just a really big one that people happen to be living on right now. And mess with the mass of the Earth and see how that messes with things. Looking at your paper here, make my face a little bit bigger. Everybody's got a copy of this in your Google Drive. I remembered to check the checkbox this time that gives you all a copy so you can actually edit it. But it'll give you directions here, and it will ask you just to play with it for a while. Okay, this part that says run several simulations, changing parameters as you go. Just after you hang up the phone with me, or after you hang up the Zoom, just get in and start pushing buttons and see if you can make it do cool things. See if you can figure out some way to, like, fling the moon way off into space, or see if you can, crash things into other things. There's lots of stuff you can play with here. And then it starts getting into some questions. So you'll basically just do what it says to do right here. Type in your observations. It's only 10 things long. It's just barely 2 pages, so it shouldn't take you long at all to kind of work through and play around with. Trying to think if there's anything else that I need to tell you for today. I really think that's it. So if anybody has any questions about this assignment or about the sim, you can either unmute yourself and talk, or you can type it in the chat and I can answer it. I'll give you about a minute or so to do that. But I think, like I said, this is going to be a really short and sweet Zoom call, and then you can work. This will be due tomorrow by midnight. So Friday night by midnight, before Thanksgiving break gets here. You shouldn't have any problem getting it done today, though. And anybody who's watching this video later, your requirement for today to be counted present is to go ahead and just do this lab and get it handed in. Your privileged planet thing that you got yesterday, those are due tonight before midnight, so be sure you watch that. Do yourself a favor, don't just go Google conditions necessary for life. The video does a really good job of giving you several and explaining them in very simple terms. I think the first one that it mentions and the first one that I have on that other paper is liquid water. So whenever it starts talking about liquid water, just prick your ears up, follow along, pause, write, unpause, watch, pause, write, and it should not take you long at all to get that done either. There will be one more Zoom meeting tomorrow. I'm going to give you just a few short notes having to do with the math behind gravity between a planet and a moon, or between a planet and the sun. And that's going to be it before Thanksgiving. So nobody has spoken up. I'm going to assume that y'all are good. I'm going to go ahead and end the recording now.